Hi, welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. This week has absolutely flown by, but I don't have a lot of news from around the farm. It was a fairly normal week in terms of just chores and looking after the sheep, things like that. I did have to check the electric fences one day. We noticed that a tree was down, and because the little flashing light that we have set up that we can see from the lounge room isn't working right now, we weren't 100% sure that the fence was actually getting current all the way through. We do have this little light, and it's attached to the fence, and it will flash as the current comes through. Um, but I think the globe has gone in that, so we're going to have to get a new one of those so that when we are inside at night, we can actually see that the fence is operational, which is right around at the end of the whole circuit, so we know that the whole fence is getting power. So because of that, I went out during the day. I got our voltage meter and I popped it on the fence in a couple of different locations just to check that the voltage was coming through. So on either side of where the tree was, so up in the top paddock where the electric starts, and then in the paddock around where the chook trailer is, where it is near the end of the electric fence. And it was a fairly consistent voltage around each of the different areas, so it was definitely working, which was great. So we didn't have to worry too much about rushing to get that tree off the fence. Because we knew that the electric was getting through. And we did one final blackberry spray before the rig got returned. So we did a bit more up into the bush, and then it went back on Monday. And it's actually quite cool this morning. I almost put on a woolen jumper, but it's not that cold. This is quite light. It just kind of provides a little bit of protection. So yeah, I think the sun is going to come out and sort of burn away the cool today, but you can really feel the change. As I told you last week, I was preparing for a day over at Unwind Craft Cafe where I was going to be teaching two sock knitting classes. So my technique of how I knit my socks toe up with a short row heel. That was a really great day. Met some wonderful people who are now sock knitting superstars. They did a wonderful job. And what I do in the class is that I teach all the techniques and we create a little tiny sock so that you get to do the toe, not spend a whole lot of time knitting on the actual foot. Then you can get to your heel, and then we can do a little short cuff and do the bind off so that it's nice and stretchy. So I had people finish the sock in the class, and some people got very close and they've since sent me pictures of their finished socks, and they're very excited to be starting on to their adult size socks now as well. I've also spent quite a lot of time this week preparing for the market, which I'm going to this weekend as part of a craft retreat. So it's only for the participants of the retreat. So it'll be nice and intimate. I'll get to speak to a lot of people, and really hopefully share my story about living on a farm and all that kind of thing as well. So I have prepared all of the yarn into organized tubs so that I can quickly move it from there up into my display. And I have practiced doing the display a few times. I have a cloth that's going to go over the table in a light purple, and then I have baskets, and then all of the yarn is going to go into baskets at different heights so that I can display everything. I'm taking quite a lot. I think it's good to provide some real choice and to really show off what my dye style is like. So that's why I'm sort of taking quite a lot of stock, but it's packed down into only 4 tubs, so I think I've done reasonably well. And I have, as I said, I've practiced putting everything together, and it doesn't take too long to do the full setup. So I am pleased with how I have been able to come up with the look and the style and to be able to put everything onto the table. So it should be a really good weekend. as part of getting the setup done, I've also had to sync all of those products across to my Square device so that I can have a payment option there. So you can just tap on your credit card. And I wanted to have all of the actual product colors and names and everything in the system so that I can keep track of what's been sold. So that I have a really good record of what people were really interested in, and so that I can then do a bit of a redye list when I come back. So yeah, that's all done, but that was not the fun part. The table setup was a lot of fun. Apart from literally a couple of rows on my sock this week, I have spent all of my time on just one project that I'm really excited about. A brand new cast on, which I mentioned last week, and that I have now done quite a lot on. Let me show you. So it's the Spectra by Stephen West, and I'm doing it with my hand spun from the Coloured Wool and Fibre Company Kaleidoscope box that I spun as a gradient, and it came out to be about a DK worsted weight. This is the first ball of it. So this is the black through to blue and green. And then I've got another ball about the same size, which goes from the green into some sort of golden browns and some purples and some pinks. So I'm still only on the black, but I've done quite a lot. So here it is so far. I've done how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I've done 16 of the wedges, and I think it's coming out really, really beautifully. My hand spun is really consistent. It looks almost like a commercial yarn. There's no real thick spots or weird bits that I've come across so far, which is quite good. And if I do at this point, I'll probably just cut those out so that it doesn't make the fabric too thick. See, the back is nice and neat as well. And this grey is just fantastic. It's got little flecks of colour in it. It's probably not going to show up. There's quite a bit there that you can see the red in there. It just gives it this sort of depth and interest in it. Tiny little flecks of tweed. It is Queensland Collection Drover Merino Silk Tweed. And I think it's going to now go really well as I bring in the colours to sort of show them off and highlight. It'll highlight the colour that I'm bringing in, and it'll also highlight the colour in the grey. So I've been a little bit addicted to doing this. I can see that I'm getting close to where the black blends with the blue. So it'll be blue and black together. So I'll start to see that gradient come through in the wedges, which is exciting me at this point. It might get tedious after a while because it's going to be a lot of knitting with 2 giant balls of my hand spun, but I just think it's coming out really well. I'll pop a progress keeper on here after I finish so that I don't have to continue to count the wedges, but we'll be able to see how many I do in a week. Maybe some weeks won't be quite so much, but I think while I'm really into it and as the colors start to come in, I think I will be doing quite a bit of this. It's very addictive. So it's one of Stephen West's early patterns. And I've had it in my my library for a really long time. So I'm actually happy that I've found, I feel like the perfect yarn combinations to get this done. It's going to end up being super long. And I really don't mind because I want to use all of this hand spun in the project because I just think that it is going to look really beautiful all combined together. And that was what I was thinking, that I was going to find something that was a really true gradient pattern that would work with this yarn. One thing I have noticed with the pattern, which is actually quite surprising, is that nowhere does it explain how to carry your colored yarn up the back so that you don't see it in the sections in between. See how there's little wedges of the gray in between the color? There's nowhere in the pattern that explains how to carry that up so that it is invisible there. And this pattern's been around for a really long time, as I said, so I'm surprised that he hasn't gone back and added anything about that. And it caught me by surprise on the first wedge. So I was just reading the pattern through as is, and I knit the first wedge, and then I did the 2 rows of the grey. And then I went back to start the next coloured wedge, and I had this big long piece, probably, a loop of the black at the back. I'm like, that looks really messy. Like, that's a bit strange. So I ripped it back, and I figured out my own way of being able to catch that and hide it so that you get these really neat wedges on the front and back. I might take a photo and pop it in so you can see that I'm hiding that black on the back. It's kind of hard to see because it kills a little bit. There you go. So what I'm doing is kind of like a ferrule catching the float kind of thing. So I am twisting the yarns, kind of like what he says to do as you're when you switch the colors at the end, when you go from the color to the gray at the end here. But I'm continuing that up in a way that hides it behind. So yeah, that was the one thing that's kind of threw me a little bit with the pattern, that wasn't explained. It didn't say to cut the yarn, it didn't say to not cut the yarn, and it didn't explain how to hide it so that you didn't see it in your main color. So yeah, I will be showing you a lot of this. I'm looking forward to when the colors change, and I think it's going to be just the most fabulous colored thing. And I really am loving how it's coming out so far. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.